Yeah, I started reading. I didn't think I'd like it, but I do like it. I started reading a book. I'll show it to you in a minute. I started reading a book about one of Jigme poems. Now, I'm not a poem kind of person, you know. I don't. I'm not. I'm not that kind of. I suppose I could be if I tried, but basically, all the great masters, you know, they spoke in verse, you know. So everything was like poetic, you know. And so it kind of put me off when I saw this new translation of one of Jigme poems. So let me say a little bit about Jigme as well. This is filler before we start, by the way. Let me say a little thing about Jigme as well, and that is that he is kind of like the, how would you explain this? He's like the reference point in recent times for an enlightened master. He spent most of his life in retreat, and without having access to books, he actually realized teachings without actually having studied, you know. He's quite an extraordinary character. So this is the book. Let me see if I can. It's called A Trackless Path. And it's this guy who I didn't know, Ken MacLeod. McLeod. Now, I'm not recommending this book, by the way, but I'm just telling you I liked it. And I've only started reading it, so I can't say that much. Yeah. So, why do I like it so much? Because he says exactly what I say, but he says it better. So, I quote you a few little pieces here. I don't want to make it dry with me just reading out of a book. So, what it says here is that when you're willing and able to rest exactly in what we are experiencing, however difficult it may be, we discover possibilities that we did not know were there. So when we stop trying to sort out the muddle of what's happening in our mind, when we stop trying to change it, this is an interesting one, when we stop trying to make sense of it all, when we stop struggling with what we are experiencing and just experience it, then attraction, aversion, and indifference to what we are experiencing drops away and a space opens up. You see, here's the interesting point, is that we think it's the circumstances and situations that cause us to suffer. It's not. What you discover as you rest in this unaltered state in meditation is that all these things come and they go again. We get stuck with, oh, I don't like that. What's going on here? Okay. How can I make this something other than what it is? It is what it is. Your experience is valid. It's neither good nor bad. You might find that difficult to believe, but actually, your experience is neither good nor bad. We made a mistake. Experiences are just experiences. And there's one here especially for Sean. It is through knowing our own experience true and true that we discover the possibility of freedom. This knowing is not a psychological understanding of why we do things. It's not an understanding of what motivates us. It's not an understanding of the structure of our reactions. The suffering comes from wanting things to be different. Okay? So, it's really easy. Okay? There's nothing to be done. You just simply have to rest in your experience without altering it. Again and again and again. And then something happens. The true quality of what you experience shows itself. What he says here is we discover an extraordinary possibility of being completely at peace, no matter what's happening in your mind, no matter what external circumstances come. Okay, so shall we sit for a little while? So, just leave your mind unaltered. Whatever is happening, just leave it alone. Don't try to control. Just leave it alone. Let it be what it is. It is what it is. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing to be changed. There is no better place. Sometimes meditation happens when you stop meditating. So I said, experiences are neither good nor bad. That's a dramatic discovery, if you know that. So where does the good and bad come from? You know, what's the origin of good and bad? It's judgment of the experience. It's not allowing yourself to experience. Do you understand? It's trying in some way to alter the experience. Not having the courage or the ability to just simply allow yourself to experience. Because when you allow yourself to experience, there are no good experiences and no bad experiences. The good and bad is something we add in, our ideas of how it's supposed to be. Do you get this point? It's kind of like we're already free, but nobody told us. Okay, I'll leave it at that. I'm very happy to take any of your questions or whatever. I'm very happy to say have a nice day and so on. So, okay.
Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Martin.
Thanks, Martin.
Thanks, Martin.
Very welcome.
Do you not think there's some level of self-confidence required?
Oh yeah.
Maybe even a big level?
Yes, yes. And how do you
Okay.
get it? How do you get it, Margaret? How do you get it? You know, how do you get that level of confidence? It's actually with practice. That's why it's called practice.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
A little bit more to it as well. Actually, it's quite interesting that I don't. Okay, forgive me if this comes out all wrong. Okay, but
I can say something as well.
go on. You say it then. Get me
Yeah,
off the hook.
I think it's very interesting that you use the term self-confidence. Okay?
Language.
I know
Yeah.
it's not just language actually, it's very interesting because the self that you discover when you sit like this, when through practice like this, doesn't need all those judgments. It is actually free. So your confidence comes from becoming more familiar with that self.
That's good. Yeah. I approve of what Cecily is saying for once.
Wow. Harmony. Everybody go.
Yeah, Margaret's going
Okay.
to ask something.
See,
Margaret's going to ask something again.
okay, Evelina, see you.
It's not another question. It's more a kind of the experience you're talking about. If I choose a very ordinary example, if you're uptight about something, the most common one somebody you have to meet who you kind of are a bit
Edgy.
yeah, exactly. If you had enough experience to just let it be, to just let the experience happen. But that's not how we are, generally. Generally, we're kind of, oh, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, this person's like that, and it's kind of, so it's kind of, what you're talking about is quite advanced, really,
Okay.
compared to ordinary, everyday, I think. I don't
Okay.
know.
So there's an interesting thing here, Margaret, and that is that, you see, we're practicing in this special atmosphere. That's why we need formal practice. We're practicing in this special atmosphere. And what happens is that what we discover, or like the confidence that we discover, the discovery of the nature of experience, which we do in this artificially quiet, safe environment, that starts to bleed into everyday life. And eventually it becomes so strong that it becomes your experience in everyday life.
Okay.
So there's no like shortcut in a way. I know we all want the shortcut, don't we? There's no shortcut in the way. Is like you have to be able to bring this experience into, you have to be able to, this is the word, you have to be able to recognize this in yourself. And you do that in the meditation practice.
Say it more clearly what you recognize in yourself.
Oh, okay.
This self, isn't it?
Oh yeah, what you recognize in yourself is your own nature. How the whole thing is. You know, before we all believed strongly there are good and bad thoughts. You know, there are good and bad experiences. We strongly believe that. As you practice in the special environment of meditation, you discover it's all just movement. There's no good or bad. It's only when I want, I don't want. It's only when that comes into it that becomes good or bad. Its actual nature, the actual nature of all experience is just like a beautiful display. Even the shitty things, even the argument, even the whole thing. And then you're free. And then what happens? What happens then is that you realize everybody that you meet was just like you were. They're under the control of good and bad. They're under control. And so, which is something that they themselves have imposed on reality. It's not part of reality. It's something they've imposed on reality. And therefore, like, your heart goes out to them. That they're suffering unnecessarily. Self-created suffering. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I get it. I suppose I'm kind of, I get it intellectually.
Yes. That's why you have to practice.
Exactly. And the way to bring that into... Yeah.
And it'll happen as well too. That you'll come across, in everyday life, you'll come across some experience and something will trigger from your practice, from your understanding, from your conceptual understanding. Something will trigger and you will go, You mightn't be able to sustain it for long. You mightn't be able to be this perfect Buddhist or whatever, like. But that will happen. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I was going to add one other little thing. But
Yeah.
it was specifically for somebody who wasn't here, which happens to me all the time. So,
I can commiserate with Margaret, because what you say, you're questioning about how does this happen, you know, relates very much. The very first time I met Sagyal Rinpoche, this is my first time meeting a teacher that I could talk to, or that could talk to me. I told him, like, I think other people sitting there were only a small group of us in a friend's living room at the time. And I think other people didn't kind of get what I was talking about so much. They mightn't have had the same experience. But I was asking Rinpoche, I was saying, like, I have these conversations in my head. That I'm going to say this to somebody and they'll say this to me. But I said, it never happens like that.
Yeah.
You know, and he said it's something about grasping. You know, he said something about releasing the grasping. And straight away I asked Rinpoche, how do you do that? And he kind of said, oh, like, give it time, you know. And
Yeah.
it's through all the teachings and the practice, really importantly, the practice that we've done, or that you do, and reflecting even on it as well, that the understanding starts to come. And it's not so much, you mentioned the term bring it in, it's not so much bring it that you have to do something deliberate, but it becomes your experience in meditation and of how you are, becomes your experience of how you are, and that inevitably leaks into every day. So it doesn't kind of demand an effort on your part, but it's true what Martin says, sometimes an understanding or a conceptual understanding of, oh, that's what that means, and then you go,
then it becomes real.
It becomes real.
It ceases to be conceptual.
Yeah.
In everyday
Exactly.
experience.
That's a really key transition, because when you experience it beyond the conceptual or the intellectual, then it's really like realization.
Okay.
Yeah.
So will I go on for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
That okay? There's a. I hope I can bring this out. Okay. You see, there is the experience. That's one thing, right? And then there's our take on the experience. That's something different. So, what happens to us is that we focus on our take on the experience rather than on experiencing itself. When you're focused on experiencing itself, there's a vivid, alive quality. No matter whether the experience is positive or negative, there's this vivid, alive quality. That's what we allow ourselves to become cognizant of, to feel that. Not the object, not the take on the experience. So if somebody insults you, right, what you concentrate on is the feeling of insult, not the insulter, not the insult. This is really, really key point. What you do is you just try to feel that insult, the feeling of being insulted. That's what you remain with. And as with all feelings, it dissolves. If you do otherwise, you'll be sustaining something. Do you know, if you focus on the insult itself, then you'll be reacting and so on and so forth. Do you get it? If you just feel the insult, if you feel what it's like to be insulted, it's actually vivid and there's something. I don't know what the word is. Okay. I was my first go at it.
It's
Okay.
electric, isn't it?
Sorry, Avril, yeah, you need to unmute.
To mind, I found that very, very, very interesting. Now, the feedback you gave to Margaret, and what just the last few bits you were saying. Immediately, I was saying, "Oh, that's my pride. It's my pride. My pride is hurt." That was the way it was explained to me. I suppose when I was growing up, somebody insulted you, and immediately you get like that. But what I found very interesting about your response to Margaret is that I experienced when we were doing meditation, or mostly what you said beforehand, I kept saying, my immediate reaction was, that's fine if it's a good experience, but what about all the bad experiences? How can you do? And I realized when I listened to your response to Margaret that was actually my resistance.
Yeah.
I was actually resisting.
Yeah.
Because I said, oh, no, that doesn't apply. That only applies to, and I was thinking of recent good experiences that I had. Yeah, I can go along with that. And the next thing, something flashed in like a difficult person, and immediately I was back into, oh, no, I don't think, so.
You see, the key thing here, Everett, is when your pride is hurt, you don't do that analysis. You go into the feeling of hurt.
Yeah.
You see, you don't say, oh, this is because, this is, do you understand? You don't rationalize it. You just go straight into being open to feeling that. And what you discover is, you don't have to fix anything.
Yeah.
And that's Jeannie Mac,
And sometimes I think you can actually realize the vulnerability of the person that's insulting you.
Of course, yes.
Which is a great realization, because it immediately, brings you back into your own empathy.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's opening a communication channel with the person. And you see,
exactly.
when you don't resist the hurt, right? Then look at what happens to the relationship you have with the person. You see, it's quite different. When you're hurt, you have a particular reaction. By allowing yourself to feel the hurt and allowing it just to express itself and go without being chased away, that when you do that, you're back to who you really are. A loving, caring, sentient being. And that establishes the communication with the other poor, unfortunate sentient beings. A sentient being. Do you know what I mean? Then you can actually, even though we don't change anything, but you can, we don't try to change our experience. It becomes possible to communicate and help the person. That's probably a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
So the key here is feeling. Key here is,
The expression is internal, isn't it, Martin? You're not expressing it outwardly.
Oh yeah, exactly. No. Expression has to do with you allowing yourself to feel.
Allowing yourself to feel, yeah.
You allow yourself to feel that. Now, this is not easy.
No.
I agree with Margaret. This is advanced, but my God, do you see where it's going? Do you see like this is the solution?
Yeah. Thank you, Martin. That was very good.
As always, you should have said as always.
Well,
I know I'm insulted.
A work in progress.
Mark,
We're all a work in progress, I think.
Yeah. If you need to go, Maura, please.
Mark, there's so much freedom and not trying to make sense of a situation, because I have wasted so much time in my life trying to make sense of difficult people. And like, as well as to let things be, to not try and fix it, because at the end of the day, we can't fix these situations, and you just drive yourself cuckoo.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and just say, remind yourself
Yeah.
each day
Yeah.
not to try and make sense, wasting your time and troubling yourself.
And
Really troubling.
what's lovely is, you see, the untroubled you is what's needed. Do you know?
Yes.
That's like, I was saying that to Avril as well too, you know. It's like, you know, it's the real you know, the kind of genuine, loving, you know.
No.
Martin said something else that was interesting too. He said, if you do otherwise, you'd be sustaining something, you know. And
Yeah.
You
I
don't
noticed
allow it to free.
in the story that I was telling you before about Nushil Ken's example, you know, removing the fist, I was still hurt, even though the other person had relaxed, you know. But
Yeah.
because I was feeling hurt, it took me a while to notice that the other person had relaxed.
Mm.
And then our feelings are so frigging complicated, excuse bad language. They're so frigging complicated. I felt miffed. I felt almost insulted that the other person had relaxed first, even though I was the person who had withdrawn the fist, you know. It's just ridiculous what we go through and what we put ourselves through. But it's brilliant to be able to look at these situations again and say, oh yeah, that's what happened. Because you kind of understand more and more, you know. And because it's habit, it takes time. But it's great, the freedom from just having a go and not sustaining something is brilliant.
There is a downside.
Huh.
You get less talkative.
He's pointing to me.
Why is that? Because nothing a problem. Okay, we leave it at that.